James had a second chance at love when he met Amelia. She was beautiful, sweet, and his 3 children from a previous relationship loved her as if she was their mother. Even the family dog loved her. When Amelia was pregnant with their first child, they spoke about taking their relationship to the next level and getting married after their baby was born. Fortunately, the baby was born a healthy, beautiful girl, but her birth was bittersweet. You see, when Amelia was pregnant, the doctors informed her that she had ovarian cancer. Suddenly, their plans of getting married were completely sidelined. For the next year, Amelia was in and out of hospital, and her cancer got worse. In the meantime, the hospital bills were racking up, and James was off work due to a workplace injury. But none of this mattered. He planned on sticking by Amelia's side no matter what. Fortunately, their parents were able to care for their kids while they frequented the hospital. James slept by Amelia's hospital bed, holding her hand and trying to be strong for her, even as he saw her fading before his eyes. One day, a doctor and a nurse stepped into the room to check on Amelia. The nurse smiled sympathetically at James while the doctor checked on Amelia's vital signs. "Is there anything else you need, honey?" the nurse asked her. Amelia started to shake her head, but James spoke up. "Actually, there is something both of us need," he said. "Maybe you can help." "Of course," the doctor said. "Let us know what we can do." James nodded. "Do you think you can help us get married?" The doctor and the nurse were taken aback by his question and looked at each other in surprise. Usually, James sat quietly in his chair while the medical staff cared for his fiancée. "I'll ask our colleagues," the nurse said after her shock subsided, "but I really think we can make this happen." Amelia looked at James from her bed, her eyes wide. "But I'm still in the hospital." James reached over and squeezed her hand. "I know it's last minute, but we've always talked about getting married. Why not here?" He then turned to the medical team. "Valentine's Day is coming up in 3 days. Do you think we can arrange something on that day?" "It's not going to be easy," the nurse said slowly, "but we'll see what we can do." James's heart beat faster as he saw a smile spreading across Amelia's face. Her cheeks were flushed with pleasure, and her usual tiredness was gone. For the first time, she appeared almost like her old self. The next day, the medical staff rallied and brainstormed about how they could help arrange this special occasion. The nurse returned with one of her colleagues. There was an excited expression on her face. "We have great news," she announced. "Joan happened to be on a Mummy and Me forum on Facebook last week, and she saw a lawyer offering services to officiate Valentine's Day weddings." "That's right," Joan said, grinning. "I messaged the lawyer and asked if she was willing to do a ceremony at the hospital, and she said yes." Amelia clapped her hands and laughed. She was glowing. James went to her side and kissed her on the forehead. Joan began to tell them about the details of what would happen at the ceremony, but when she started to tell them about the lawyer's fee, the couple became quiet. "We can't afford that," James said, his voice flat. Amelia sank back in her bed, the smile dropping from her face. "We have a lot of hospital bills, and then there's the kids," she said, her voice trailing off. Joan gave Amelia a hug. "I'm sure something can be done," she said, her voice calm and reassuring. After the nurses left the room, Amelia and James remained silent. The happiness they experienced only moments ago had completely vanished, and a heavy cloud of sadness settled between them. "I'm tired," Amelia said, closing her eyes. The color from her cheeks had disappeared, and she was once again a shadow of her former self. James fought back his tears as disappointment welled up in his chest. He covered his eyes, wishing that things were different and Amelia wasn't fighting this terrible disease. More than anything, he wanted things to go back to normal, to see her bright, sunny smile again. "James?" a quiet voice said at his side. He raised his head and found Joan there. She beckoned for him to follow her into the hallway so Amelia wouldn't be disturbed. "I have good news," she said in a rush. She no longer held back her enthusiasm. "I messaged the lawyer and she agreed to reduce the fee." When Joan told him about the notary's new payment structure, he started to do calculations in his head. Things were starting to look up. If they cut out a few more things at home, and he saved a larger portion of his workers' compensation, they might be able to pay the amount within a few months. He told Joan about his plan, but she shook her head. "You won't have to pay a cent," she said. I also posted your story on the forum. An anonymous donor has come forward, offering to pay the entire fee. The lawyer will come by tomorrow at 1 p.m. and will perform the marriage." James felt a lump at the base of his throat, and he became overwhelmed with emotion. He really thought that their dream of getting married was hopeless. Yet all these strangers had come forward and opened their hearts to help him and Amelia fulfill their wish. The next day was Valentine's Day. Amelia put on her makeup, and in her weakened state, she came off the bed and slowly made her way to the common room. Unfortunately, she wasn't able to wear a dress since the IV tubes made that impossible. But as soon as Amelia made her entrance, James felt his heart swell. At this moment, she was the most beautiful woman in the world, even if she was only dressed in a hospital gown. And he told her this. Amelia beamed at hearing the sincerity behind his words. The notary wore a black robe as she performed the wedding ceremony. Meanwhile, the mothers of the bride and groom bore witness to the marriage. All 4 of their sweet children looked on, sharing in the happy occasion. As James said his vows, he looked deeply in his bride's eyes and said, "For better or for worse, you are mine from now until eternity." He then kissed her to seal his promise. The sound of sniffing came from the door. James turned and saw a group of nurses and doctors clustered there, dabbing their eyes and grinning at them. "Don't mind us," Joan said, entering the room with a bottle of non-alcoholic drink. "We're just wedding crashers." Joan handed everyone a cup of the bubbly drink. Their children raced over to embrace the newlyweds. James gathered his wife and kids close to him as their new friends toasted them. Time was a precious gift, and he would share it with the people he loved. Do you know anyone who married on Valentine's Day? Please make your comments below. I can't wait to read your comments and discussions. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe and get the latest stories to warm your heart. Until then, bye!